Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate you getting out in the weather and fighting it. And we've got a great program arranged for today. And as always, we start with a prayer. Do we have anybody here that would lead us in prayer, please? I guess I'll do it. Okay, I'm not used to saying a prayer in front of a group, so bear with me. Dear Lord, I want to thank you for the people who made it out in the weather to get to this meeting. These next elections, as we hear every time around, are the most important of our lives, but that applies every time because it is always the next election. I want you to watch out for the people that need health help, and please keep your protective arms wrapped around President Trump, and give Charlie Kirk a hug for all of us. God bless him. The modern day martyr. Ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, I got that now, but I do know who I want to have lead us in prayer. It's our triple veteran. Michael Schatz, would you lead us in prayer? I'm sorry, in the pledge. Actually, I did that just to see if y'all were paying attention, since I never make a mistake. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Okay, I've got a few things I want to cover before we get to our main speaker, and that's him back there in the back row. This is Mike Mazzei. He's one of our GOP candidates for governor, and he's been so kind to drive from Tulsa in this rain to come up and speak with us today. Thing I wanted to mention, has anybody in the room heard of Wexit in Canada? Okay. Well, Wexit is a movement with the western provinces, and it's pretty much being led by Alberta, which shares a border with the United States. They have a referendum scheduled, and they will be voting on whether they want to leave the Canadian government, the Canadian country. If they do that, one of two things will happen. Either they will become an independent country, or what President Trump would like is for them to become our 51st state. This thing it's been going on for a couple of years, but it's really gained momentum. Danielle Smith, the premier of Alberta, got a law through. The petition that's being signed to bring this as a referendum originally was going to need to get over 600,000 signatures to get on the ballot. She's worked it, so that's been lowered down to like 144, I think. Something under 150. And the people organizing the campaign, the petition campaign, are saying they've already got over 250,000. Also, President Trump has announced that any Canadian provinces that want to become a United State, he's going to exchange dollar for dollar American currency for Canadian currency. Wow. Yeah, Canadian currency is about, I don't know the exact number, but I think it's about 80%, 80 cents on the dollar compared to American currency. Anyway, there's a real strong movement for this, led by Alberta, but Saskatchewan, the rural inland areas of British Columbia, the Yukon, which is that part of Canada that butts up against Alaska. In other words, a number of these western provinces are talking about getting involved with this. It's much further down the road with Alberta, and Alberta doesn't need anybody to go out with them to go out And also, anybody in here remember Rene Levesque in Quebec back in the 80s? Well, there was a huge movement back then to separate Quebec, the Frenchies, in eastern Canada. In other words, if this starts rolling and passes, Canada will very likely cease to be a country, or at least a country even close to what it's like right now. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up at an OK2A meeting is because Danielle Smith, and I'm going to read a direct quote from her, we are working right now on what a legislative framework for an Alberta firearms license would entail. Now, I'm not a big fan of having to get a license to carry or own a firearm, but in Canada, they're talking about confiscation. Okay? So this is a huge deal. If they separate out and become a separate country, they're going to need to write a constitution, and this would indicate to me they'll have some version of our Second Amendment there. This is huge in Canada. Those 25 years I went traveling all over the country on my motorcycle, I never rode into Canada because I always had a gun with me. I would ride into New York, New Jersey, and California, which is just as stupid, but I just stayed out of Canada. So this could be a huge deal. The big problems they've got is the Liberal government. What they're doing, they're declaring war on the New World Order. That's why I think this is so important. It's important worldwide because the government, the capital government in Canada is hand in glove with the New World Order. So it's called Wesket, W-E-S-E-X-T, I think. Do a search if you want more information. And she's also instructed the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the sheriffs in Alberta, the police departments and municipal governments in Alberta, that they will have zero confiscation of firearms in Alberta if they separate. So, let's see. Okay. Now, let me make a few quick introductions, and then we have two candidates that are going to be on the election here in Kay County. And I'm going to give them each a couple of minutes. They're not going to be really making a speech, but I just want them to get a chance to show their face. If they've got literature, they're welcome to stay if they can. If they have other commitments, they don't have to stay to the end of the meeting. But anyway, let me start with Jadan Terrazas. Go ahead and stand up, Jadan. He's running for Senate District 10. That's Bill Coleman's seat. Everyone knows who Bill Coleman is? Yeah, okay. Jadan, I met him when he was 17. Since 16, he's been active, very active, in Kay County Republican politics. He's a smart guy, and when he graduated, he went to work for Amazon. And I thought, oh no, they're going to ruin his politics. And they didn't. And his plan is to leave his job the end of the year, and he's going to be campaigning hard and heavy all next year. He's a good guy to know. And like I said, I've got a history with him since he was 17. He's 26 now, right? So he spoke at a number of these meetings back in the old days. He's a great speaker. His head's in the right place, and he's a rock-solid conservative. So I'll have you up in just a minute, and then Jeremy, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Well, the reason is he's not gonna be running for my district seat. He's running. What's your last name? Sacket. Okay. I'm sorry, man. He's running for District 37, which is the seat currently held by Ken Luttrell, who I'm sure everybody in here knows. So anyway, let me make the rest of my introductions, and then I'll give you all a couple of minutes, and then we'll get to mine. Fair enough? Okay. Let's see. As always, Dr. Glenn Cope at the back table. He's my pastor, my friend, and my co-coordinator, and he's a huge help here just, a month or two ago, I was down sick, and he covered my meeting in Tonkawa, and I really, really appreciate it. As always, Stephen Phipps back in the audio-visual booth. As always, and your folks said that it was fine to stream the meeting. Okay, good. I should have checked that with you since I didn't get it directly from you. We wouldn't have this venue if it wasn't for Stephen. He's a great guy. Hey, Mr. Mudd, good to see you. You look familiar too. You were, yeah, okay. You were at the GOP meeting the other night. Are you all Ken? Are you Ken? No. Oh, okay. Oh. Okay. And so, okay, that's it. He's not here, but I always like to thank our pastor, Jack Adams, here, because this is, in January, this will be 6 years that they've been a generous venue, and I can't tell you how important that is to these meetings. And so I always want to appreciate him whether he's here or not. Okay, have we got anybody got any questions before we get started with the main part of the meeting? Okay, Jadan, since you're on the aisle, come on up. When I come up and walk and stand next to you, that'll be your cue. Okay.
All right. Well, Terry already gave an introduction. It was maybe a little too glowing. I think you should run for office if you can lie like that.
No.
But no, like you said, I'm 26. I've lived in Ponca City, born and raised here, K through 12. I went to Oklahoma State for my undergrad, studied agricultural business, pre-law there. Graduated a year early. That happened to land me during COVID. And so instead of going on to law school, I had a job offer from Amazon, who was about the only company not shutting down at that point. Exact opposite was happening. And so I took that offer on a whim, and that worked out pretty well. But averaged about a promotion every year. I'm up to senior leadership at this point, making plenty of money. And that has kind of given me time to sit back and look at things and know that chasing money and career and all that is not going to help the country much at all. And so while most 26-year-olds should be building a family and a life and a personal legacy, between my faith and other influences, I've determined that that's not where I should be right now. That's not what I should be doing. So as Terry mentioned, I'll be resigning at the end of the year, get everybody through the busy Christmas season. As you all can imagine, that's chaos for us at Amazon. But going to resign at the end of the year, lose a bunch of stock, which is fine, and pursue working for the country. And so obviously this is an Oklahoma Senate seat, but politics starts at this level and only goes up from there as far as influence and change goes. So state Senate, state House, governor, and all that are probably more important to us here than president could ever be. And so I want to start at this level and really get real Republicans elected in the state of Oklahoma, because you look at our bright red map since 2000, all 77 counties, and then you see some of the headlines out of Norman and Stillwater and Oklahoma City and Tulsa, and you think, that doesn't look very red to me. So, and you see those because they're in the headlines, but it happens here at the local level too, tremendously, especially in the school systems and et cetera. In my time at Oklahoma State, as a board member for my fraternity at Oklahoma State, I promise you there's not bright red conservatives running things there either. So it's time to get some people elected that actually mean what they say and don't just do it to have an R beside their name because they know that's how they have to win in the state of Oklahoma. So policy-wise, I told the GOP meeting the other night, I really don't like single issue politicians or one issue candidates. I like people with values and foundations, and then they make decisions off of that. So that area for me, Christian, have been since I was 5 years old. I was saved by the grace of God at 5 years old. Obviously, we're all flawed, and that has showcased itself multiple times since that 5 years old change in my life. But the deeper you get in your faith, the more unworthy you realize you are anyway. So it's only by the grace of God that I'm here today and pursuing this. And I'm not going to say that God told me to do this, because then if I lose, people say, oh, God was wrong. God's never wrong, just so you know. So I won't say that. And he'll be the ultimate decision maker come June. But obviously that's part of you all's vote too. And so policy, immigration is the foremost, I think, at this point. Through my work, I've been to San Diego, Las Vegas, Chicago, and 4 or 5 other places across the country, major cities. And we don't see it here because we're in Oklahoma, but it's bad. The immigration has to stop. Stopping the immigration is not good enough. Visas need to be canceled. H-1Bs need to go away. And if we can stop the immigration and actually start remigration, then that's what it's going to take to really save our country. Anything else is small potatoes compared to that. So Terry's standing, so I'll shut up. But State Senate District 10, I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Standing next to him, it's hard to tell when I'm standing up. Jeremy, you're up. Appreciate you taking the time to come over and meet with us. And it's good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So as you said, my name is Jeremy Sacket. I have lived in, I like to say, northern Oklahoma my whole life, minus 2 years in Thailand, which I'll explain in a little bit. But I grew up in Allen, Oklahoma. Out of curiosity, who has heard that? Okay, we got a couple, actually. So it's northwest Oklahoma, over by Alva, which is where I graduated as a computer science degree from Northwestern. I have a motto of always being available. Anytime somebody needs something, if I'm available, I do it. Whether that's volunteering for the Special Olympics, being a unified partner with Paul to go down and play bocce ball with him, and having a fantastic time with him. I was available, so I did it. When we were in Thailand as missionaries, we didn't originally go over to be missionaries. We went over to just go on an adventure with the family. We got over there, and we saw a need at the school. They're like, hey, can you teach these classes? I've never stepped foot in the classroom, but it was in my wheelhouse. I was computer classes, math classes. I was like, hey, I'm available. I can do it. And so I did. And it was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done, to step foot into the classroom and teach young minds. And part of that has gotten to me to where my kind of platform is education. I do have 15 teachers in my family. My wife is a teacher at West. And if our kids can't read, even this stuff won't matter. They will not be able to educate themselves. They will not be able to read the Constitution. And from all my family members that are teachers, it is huge, in my opinion, and their opinion, of course, as well, that our kids can read. If they can't read, it's just not a good thing for our state and our country. I'm currently on the Ponca City Chamber of Commerce Board. I've been appointed to the Ponca City Planning Commission. I'm a Rotarian. I've done a lot of things. I've been on the board for Park and Rec, the Tourism Bureau, so I have my feet in a lot of past government. My faith is I'm a Christian, and I'm going to do a little bit. I believe that God told me to run, but I don't know why yet, right? It may be to do something else, or maybe another door opens up. We don't know what his plan is, kind of like what he said. We don't know what his plan is, but I felt like he was telling me to be available, and so I made myself available to the citizens of 37 and Oklahoma. So I have some flyers back there, and if you have any questions, I will stay around a little bit after this, but I do have another engagement in Fairfax they'll have to jet off to in the rain. So thank you, and I would appreciate your vote for the house. Thank you.
Very good.
We met him when he came knocking at our door, and I got a lot of respect for him. He comes knocking on the door, because not many of them do it anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, that's what little I know about politics, especially in these House districts in Oklahoma. That's how you win an election. We don't have a TV station here, so they don't need to raise $3 million to run ads. And it's time consuming. The key is to have an army, have kids, grandkids, neighbors, whatever, out knocking doors for you. Appreciate you both coming. As I said, I've standing off for any of my meetings. If you show up, if you're going to show up, you'd let me know. I'd appreciate it. But even if you just show up, I'll be able to give you a couple of minutes to do the deal. I plan in April or May of next year, I'd like to have a candidate forum where I've got all the candidates. Right now, you're the only announced. In fact, oh, you have another announced? Okay. You're the only announced for Senate District 10, right? Okay. So anyway, and when we do that, we may end up having to combine, if we've only got one candidate, well, we'll see if Bill Coleman wants to come. My guess is he won't have time. So anyway, now it's, I'm 5 minutes over. I told you I'd be done by at 12:15. Mike Mazzei has got a fantastic resume. I'm going to let him tell you about it. I gave some bullet points about it on the flyers that you saw on Facebook and that I emailed out to people. But I'm going to let him cover it. And Mike, you're up. You got the rest of the meeting, brother. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thanks for your patience.
Thanks for coming to spend some time with us today on a rainy, drizzly day. You are the, do I need to stay here to be in the frame? You are the heart and soul of true conservative, constitutional Republicans, and the state is better for your energy and dedication. I have to warn you that I have been told a time or two on the campaign trail that I'm not the most charismatic orator in the universe. Truth be told, I'm a financial nerd, which at least makes me highly intelligent. But seriously, we decided to run for governor, my wife and I, because we passionately believe that Oklahoma has unlimited potential for growth and prosperity right here in the middle of the heartland, where we treasure Christian biblical values and we believe in the pursuit of excellence and greatness. Now, Republicans have made some important progress and gains the last 10, 15 years or so. However, there are some major impediments to that next level of growth and prosperity because we're losing jobs to the no income tax states. We have public schools where only 20% of the kids can read proficiently. And we have the Chinese, Russians, and cartels buying up land all across the state of Oklahoma. So those three major issues are what I'm going to speak briefly on. And then we can dive into any topics or questions you'd like to discuss. My wife and I have never been too scared to tackle some of those big, challenging adversities. We wanted to have a big family, but had some health issues. So we adopted an infant from Russia who is now 30 years old. We did some fertility stuff that worked out better than expected and had triplets. The triplets are 26 years old. And then a couple years later, we had a bonus brother, and he's 24 years old. For a lot of years, 5 kids was fun. And then they became 5 teenagers. So we persevered through that cycle, and we're blessed where they all are in their stage of life. Yeah. And fortunately, in 1996, we started our own business that helped us pay for those 5 teenagers. And today, Trinity Strategic Wealth in Tulsa is one of the largest independent wealth management firms in the Midwest, with $1.6 billion in client assets. And thanks to the Trump agenda of lower taxes and lower energy prices and less regulations, we're excited about getting our client assets up to $2 billion. Now, I don't say that to brag, but I do say that to let you know and the people of Oklahoma know that I know money and finance. And the skill set we think that is most needed in the governor's office is money and finance. Because as the chairman of the finance committee in the Senate for 10 years, I can unfortunately tell you that you, the hardworking taxpayers of Oklahoma, have lost billions of dollars due to waste, fraud, abuse, corporate welfare, green energy nonsense. I am the guy after several years that killed in 2015 the $1.5 billion giveaway to the wind power companies that left us with just a few jobs. During my time in the Senate, we passed tax cuts. I rescued the almost bankrupt pension systems for teachers and police and firefighters. I launched the back to school sales tax holiday and killed the death tax for farmers and ranchers. All told, during that 12-year period, we saved the taxpayers $10 billion. So I do know how to launch a Oklahoma Department of Government Efficiency to save you hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And with that, we can become a no income tax state. In the first year of a Mazzei administration, I will propose to the legislature how to go from 4.5% to 3% income tax rate in one big drop as part one of a three-part strategy to become a no income tax state. And while we're at it, we're already discussing with our friends in the Senate and the House how to abolish property taxes for seniors 65 and older. Now, I know some people will think that's or will look upon our ideas with some skepticism, but I do have a history of overcoming impossible odds. In 2008, I was in a car accident that left me a physical invalid for 10 years. I couldn't walk, stand, or sit in a chair like you are right now without serious pain because of catastrophic nerve damage. To keep the story short, eventually the Lord helped us discover some medical specialists in different cities, and after 50 procedures and 4 years of physical rehabilitation, I did get my abilities back, and we're grateful for surviving a 10-year period. For some reason, the Lord has blessed me with a spirit of determination that never wants to quit and will approach challenges with some bulldog-like determination. And we need some bulldog-like determination when it comes to the mess of the public school systems when we only have 20% kids reading proficiently. When I actually work out the numbers, that means 550,000 students are in the system right now, and they're not learning how to read. And the shocker of it all is that the solution to better reading outcomes can be found, I never thought I'd say this, particularly on this football day, can be found in the state of Mississippi. OU plays Ole Miss today. Yeah. Well, when I was in the Senate passing some important education reforms, we were ranked 49th in reading outcomes. but at least Mississippi was 50th. Today, we rank 50th in reading outcomes, and who can tell me where Mississippi now ranks?
Like 35 or something, I think.
Let's say in the 30s.
In April, according to the data from the National Assessment of Education Progress, Mississippi is now #1 in the nation.
Wow.
And in my first week as governor of Oklahoma, I will hire a statewide literacy director, just like Mississippi did, and we will employ the reform strategies that they have successfully implemented over the last 10 years. Phonics in every reading classroom, millions of dollars for reading specialists in every school district, and the establishment of the 3rd grade reading gate, as they call it, which is if Johnny and Susie aren't reading proficiently in 3rd grade, we aren't just going to ship them to 4th grade, wave at them and say, we hope you figure it out. No, they're going to stay in 3rd grade, but we're going to get them the help they need.
Smart.
What I find very frustrating, however, is we actually established the 3rd grade reading gate when I was in the Oklahoma Senate, but the Republicans in name only that came after us eventually watered it down and eliminated it because they got weak-kneed in the face of complaints from superintendents and the liberal elite of the education establishment. And that raises a very important point that you will be dealing with during this election cycle. How do you assess a true reform-minded, lifelong conservative with some Trump-like tenacity versus the candidates, whether they be running for the House or the Senate or governor, that want to trick you into thinking they're true conservatives? Here's an unfortunate case study for us to discuss and examine. We have learned during this campaign season that the Chinese Communist Party now owns land in all 77 counties. Wow. Think about that. All 77 counties. Well, most of Oklahoma land is farmland, but we also have 5 major military installations. So you know as well as I do that most of this foreign ownership of land is embedded with these awful, huge marijuana grow farms that become centers of human trafficking and drug trafficking. But this public safety crisis is now also a national security crisis, because from CCP-controlled land, they could launch weapon strikes with drones against our major military installations, just like Israel did to Iran recently and wiped out their air defenses. They could poison your water. They could introduce diseases to humans and livestock. And here's another shocker. Title 22, Section 1 of the Oklahoma Constitution forbids the foreign ownership of land. But the current Attorney General of Oklahoma, who wants to be your next governor, refuses to enforce the law. My other opponent in this race, the former Speaker of the House from Atoka, has publicly bragged on a statewide TV ad that he passed the toughest, harshest law banning foreign ownership of land in 2023, and thinks nobody will actually look into the details. Well, here's the truth. Noah, I'm not sure we had this out. Would you please pass out the info cards that we have? If you're a note taker like me, when you get the note card, or if you have a piece of paper, write down Senate Bill 212. And the year was 2023. You can literally type that into Google and you'll get some interesting information. Now, this piece of legislation actually started out as kind of a tough enforcement attempt to deal with foreign ownership of land. But then the big money interests descended on the Capitol, and it turned into this whitewash of what I think is the most egregious loophole in the history of Oklahoma, given the stakes that we're dealing with. This law ended up only requiring the processing of an affidavit called Affidavit of Land or Mineral Ownership. And it's right here. And item number 3 has to be dealt with by anyone who buys land in the state of Oklahoma. So it says the person obtaining the property is, and there's 2 boxes, and you have to check one of the 2 boxes if you want to process the sale. The first box is great. A citizen of the United States. Check that box, prove that you're a citizen, buy whatever you want. But the second box is a little troubling. After the word United States is the word or. And I always look for somebody that likes talking in front of others. So who in this crowd, Terry, likes talking, in front of other people besides you?
Besides me?
Yeah.
Jaden?
Jaden?
Yeah.
All right, Jaden, you're our everybody give Jaden a clap. Yay. He's our volunteer. I don't want to put my glasses on. So, what is the other option that's highlighted that is available to check?
Not a citizen of the United States, but an alien who is or shall become a bona fide resident of the state of Oklahoma.
They may become a citizen, huh? They may become.
So that's basically everybody.
Anybody can buy anything in the state of Oklahoma, and we sure as heck aren't dealing with the foreigners that are here. Like Sarah Huckabee Sanders is over in the state of Arkansas. Now, my question for you is, how long did it take President Donald Trump to secure the southern border? Huh?
90 days.
You think it took 90 days? I don't think it took quite that long.
Couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks?
Yeah.
Well, on my first day as governor, I will sign executive orders in Trump-like fashion to enforce the law, get rid of this nonsense loophole, and evict the Chinese communists from the state of Oklahoma. Now, we're pretty excited about winning this race and getting to work on these 3 priorities, because we believe as people get more and more educated about everyone's background and true voting records, true performance, they'll be drawn to our record of true conservative reforms. When I was working hard to help Republicans gain the majority and get Josh Brakeen elected to the Oklahoma State Senate, Charles McCall gave $5,000 to his Democrat opponent to help Democrats keep control of the Oklahoma Senate. So I can tell you that from my history, well, let me put it this way. In my industry, even though we provide great results for customers, Terry will understand this, we always have to say past performance is no guarantee of future results. Right, Terry?
Yeah. Amen.
But in public service, I can tell you that past performance is 100% an indicator of future performance. And so the road to victory for us is pretty compelling because we have the resources to implement our campaign plan. We would love to get 10, 20, 50, $100 contributions from anybody, anywhere. My wife and I announced recently that in 2025, we're investing $3 million into this campaign. We've hired the political consultants that beat Gettner Drummond in 2018 when he first ran for Attorney General. And thanks to United States Congressman, Freedom Caucus, true conservative Josh Brakeen, and true conservative former Attorney General John O'Connor have publicly endorsed our campaigns. We're starting to secure the conservative base all over the state of Oklahoma. And when you have the money and you have the top strategists and you have the conservative base, you know what you get? A winner. Yeah. And with that, we believe that when true reform-minded conservatives join in common cause all across the state of Oklahoma, we can make Oklahoma a no-income tax state. We can fix the schools so kids can read proficiently, and we can kick these nefarious communists out of the state of Oklahoma. And we are also confident that when you and committed constitutional conservatives like you all across the state of Oklahoma choose freedom and faith, we can usher in a golden age of growth and prosperity that shines like a beacon of light and hope all across America. And with that, I would love to know what you want to talk about and what questions you have. But I think Terry's in charge of.
They know the deal.
Terry's in charge of Q&A.
I always check, but I've only had one candidate that wanted to do it themselves, and I think they regretted it afterwards. Anyway, but one of the things I'm most proud of my meetings is everybody, hey, Taryn, I didn't see you come in. Good to see you.
Sorry for being late.
Well, you're here, that's amazing.
Of course.
We've got a couple of people here that I just met 2 nights ago at the GOP K-County meeting. I actually spoke with John O'Connor at the OCPA Gala the other day, or no, it was the awards. Anyway, and he's a billboard for Mike Mazzei. And that was the most tragic event in that election cycle, was him getting beat for Attorney General by you-know-who. I hate to even speak the name unless I'm praying to the Lord. Anyway, we have new people here, and my old-timers know what the deal is. When we do the questions, raise your hand. You were first, so you'll be the first one I call on. I call on you, and please get to your question right away, because I want to make sure that everybody that has a question has a time and the opportunity to ask it. Since we're not a big crowd today, I normally make you hold follow-up questions until everybody else has asked their question, but I am going to allow one follow-up question from each person, and then I will come back to you, so you can ask as many questions as you want, as long as I've called on you. So, what was your name?
Richard Clark.
Richard Clark. Richard Clark, you had your hand up?
Dave Clark. Well, anyways.
If you could stand up and speak up so everybody can hear you. Yeah, thank you.
I want to ask, okay, if when you come and get in immigration people from getting their land, would it be like the National Guard coming in here and starting like a riot like Chicago did and stuff? Would it be something similar to that?
Did everybody hear the question? I think the good example,
You might repeat it for the ones listening on the stream,
You want to repeat it, or you want me to?
Okay.
or incorporate it.
Yeah, we have pretty good microphones. Did it go out? Yeah, he's got great microphones here. By the
Okay.
way, those of you that are at home streaming this, if you have a question, send it to my phone number via text, and Steven's gonna put my phone, there it is, right there. Text me the question, and I won't even make you wait in line since I'm the one that gets to talk. So, okay, so the question is, basically, I think it is, how are we gonna evict the Chinese? My guess would be,
Immigrants.
huh?
Immigrants that are trying to purchase
Illegal.
land.
Yeah, well, illegals,
Yeah, illegals.
They're
that are trying
breaking
to
the
purchase
law.
land. Yeah,
they're criminals,
so.
bottom line.
Would it be like the National Guard coming in here and getting rid of them?
Well, that'll,
One of the best examples is what Sarah Huckabee Sanders did in Arkansas with announcing a move against a group called Syngenta, a Chinese state-owned agrochemical company. She forced them to give up their land holdings in Arkansas and leave. So there wasn't any type of confrontation, if that's what you're referring to. Now, with the proper executive orders to the Secretary of State, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, and the Department of Public Safety, we can confront those nefarious landowners and basically tell them, you gotta go. And we think that will be the force that compels major change by kicking everybody out. The law is pretty clear that once an illegal foreigner leaves, the property reverts back to the previous owner and doesn't have to fork over any of the compensation of cash that they received in the purchase.
did that answer your question, or do you have a follow-up?
What happens if it was like terrorists or something like that, trying to like take over the land and don't want to give it up?
Like Muslims
Yeah.
in Texas.
Well, if it's illegal aliens
Half those Muslims are legal.
Raise your hand, you know. You can-
if it's illegal aliens that are possible terrorist threats, then you get the FBI involved and you have a coordinated plan to take control of the facility with our law enforcement officers of Oklahoma.
Well, and if they use violence, then the only way to respond to violence is with superior violence. That would be my guess. Does that make sense?
Oh, I think if we surround the place with OSBI, troopers, FBI, law enforcement, National Guard, Oklahoma National Guard if necessary, there won't be they'll lay down their arms and leave.
You're up from about Muslims, right?
The trouble with the Muslims in Texas is they're legal citizens. How do you get rid of them? You know, I mean, they're establishing places with Sharia law.
When I was in the
Texas have a hard time getting rid of them.
When I was in the legislature, we already passed a law that forbids Sharia law in the state of Oklahoma. Now, of course, we have to enforce that law in all 77 counties. And that certainly needs to be a focal point for the governor, the House, and the Senate.
Well, what worries me about the Muslims, they want to be violent anyway, you know.
Well, look at what Trump has done for the nation in terms of law and order, public safety. National Guardsmen went into Washington, D.C. and brought law and order to that area. And for those of you who have visited DC from time to time, they needed some help.
Amen.
And it's working. One of the disagreements I've had recently with Governor Stitt, who I like and have worked well with in the past, is he criticized President Trump for employing National Guard from other states to go into the city of Chicago. We support the president's intention and proactive efforts to enforce the rule of law, defend ICE agents, and protect and defend the Constitution. And when I look at the arc of history, both President George Washington and President Abraham Lincoln used National Guards, militias they were called obviously in that day, from one state to enforce the rule of law and enforce the Constitution in other states. And in a Mazzei administration, we will have that type of focus as well.
Michael, you're up next.
Kind of ties in with what you were saying. I've heard it 2 or 3 times, but I have not done the research on it. Pregnant women come over here, primarily Chinese. I know they do it in California, but I haven't researched Oklahoma. To have their babies here and they're automatically American citizens. And that in itself, right at that level, doesn't sound too bad, but when they get older, they could still be under the influence of the Chinese and be citizens of the U.S. Do you know anything about that, or?
Well, I know President Trump is fighting this more modern development of if somebody's here illegally and they have a baby, do they automatically become U.S. citizens? He's trying to reverse that. I can't remember, Terry, when that sort of mushroomed in America, but President Trump and the Department of Justice does not believe that was the intention of the framers of the Constitution, and it is trying to reverse that in the courts. I imagine it's going to go all the way up to the Supreme Court, and fortunately with conservatives, many appointed by President Trump now, with a 6-3 majority, we'll get some common sense back into what the Constitution was providing for.
And according to what I've read, they're maybe that's the wrong word, we're talking about legal. They've got several different lawsuits pending. They're attacking that problem from multiple angles. That's what I've heard. Of course, it was in the U.S. media, so we always have to ask ourselves, my goodness, what if that's true? So, but that's the last thing I heard on it. Jay, you're up next?
Yeah, I'm just gonna mention, or just say first, that the birthright citizenship, which is what he's fighting, is already in the courts and towards it in the Supreme Court.
Right.
It's waiting for hearing in the Supreme Court. So that's one thing. The other one that concerns me the most is what can we do here in Oklahoma, or could you do, to prevent, and I'm probably going to get classified as an Islamophobe immediately, but as you look at the world, look at the UK, look at Norway, look at all the places they've gotten a foothold, and now this crazy fool Mondami is going to have New York City, which then gives him the state of New York. Mm-hmm. How do we in Oklahoma prevent the Muslims from infiltrating our government system like they have in other places?
That's a really important question because Europe's become a disaster, Paris is a mess, and New York City is going to go down the tubes if they elect this radical socialist communist. One good thing that we have in Oklahoma, and I might use this to segue into a couple other items, but Republican registration is over 50% in the state. Democrat registration is like 28 or 30, and then independents are 10 or 11. So as long as conservative, Republican, constitutional folks like yourselves keep showing up at the polls, we'll hopefully keep that nonsense out of Oklahoma. What you really have to be wary of and make sure we all do our part to fight it is this initiative petition that's probably going to lead to a ballot question on June 16, 2026, to make Oklahoma a jungle primary state like California. Unfortunately, the people of the city of Tulsa adopted that 20 years ago. So because of the jungle primary, the mayor in my hometown is now a radical socialist Democrat, because the jungle primary led to 2 Democrats being in the runoff. So there's efforts now going on in Tulsa to reverse that nonsense and go back to a party-based system of voting. But all of us have to fight like the Dickens to make sure Oklahoma does not become a jungle primary state, because that would open up the door to that very scary threat.
That's SQ 836, state question 836. Write that down. They're gonna be circulating petitions. If the best way to stop it is for them not to get enough signatures on the petitions, and so it won't be on the ballot. But if it does get on the ballot, you have to campaign and vote against that, because that will, well, in the last governor's election, had this system been in place, we would have had 2 Democrats to vote for governor. That's how bad it is, so.
How many signatures do they need to get it on?
You know, I'm not sure, they just recently changed that law, and I've heard that it does apply to this and it doesn't.
My understanding is it did not apply to the new law that requires petitions to come from certain geographical reasons. Therefore, it's more likely than not to end up on the June 16 ballot.
Okay.
Yeah, they just changed, right now, they gather petitions in Oklahoma City area and Tulsa area, and maybe 1 or 2 other metro areas, but we don't even get a chance to even decline on the petition. They have changed that. Next time around, they're gonna have to take a certain percentage of their signatures from counties scattered all around the state. It'll be a lot fairer, but, okay, so that's what you've heard, that does not apply.
I'm not 100%, but that's what I've heard.
Okay, I'd heard both. I was hoping you were wrong, actually.
Yeah, I hope I'm wrong too.
And, before I move on, let's give the Islamisphobia a hand. You said you were concerned that it might make you look like an Islamophobe.
Islamophobia, I'm sure it might.
Yes, you're
I
right.
mean, and when you become governor, will you get the city and school board elections, talk to the state legislature to get those elections to be moved to November?
I love that question.
Yeah,
Because
very important.
let me back up just a little bit and ask you this question. The question was, when should school board elections be? How many elections in a row did Donald Trump win all 77 counties in the state of Oklahoma? 3. So we're a very conservative state, but we have 541 school districts that are run by liberal-minded, left-leaning superintendents
Too many of them.
and school board officials that basically do not really represent Oklahoma conservative values. Well, the reason that is these school board elections are in February or March, when nobody knows when they're going on. They have a 5% voter turnout, but the superintendents and the liberal establishment make sure all their friends know about the election, but the parents don't. So for 2 years in a row, some of my friends in the Oklahoma Senate have gotten legislation over to the House that moves the school board elections to the general election date of when we choose the governor or when we choose the president. In his final year as Speaker of the House, Charles McCall would not put that bill on the floor of the House for a vote. And unfortunately, this past year, with a new speaker, that bill passed again out of the Senate, did not get on the floor of the House. But some recent data has told us that 77% of parents or Oklahoma Republican voters want school board elections to be moved to the general election date. So I have publicly said, as politely as I can with my friends in the Oklahoma House of Representatives, that I will not sign any legislation coming out of the Oklahoma House until they put the school board election bill on the floor for a vote, because only with that type of consequential transformative change will we get transparency, accountability, and Oklahoma values back into the leadership of our schools. He's in charge.
No, so it's been, McCall as Speaker and Hilbert as Speaker that have killed this bill from at least getting a vote.
Yeah, I can't guarantee an outcome, but
No,
I
of
can
course not.
stand up for getting the bill at least voted on. So few House members or future House members have to choose. I'm either gonna support the parents or I'm gonna support the superintendents and the liberal school board members.
Yeah. Okay. Again?
This may not be your bailiwick. I've been frustrated. I moved here 8 years ago and been involved and got involved with Terry and things, but over that time, I've become increasingly frustrated with this Republican majority in the House and the Senate that can't get a damn thing done.
That's why I'm running for governor.
How do we flesh out the rhinos and identify them so voters like us can say, this is a rhino, get them out?
Well, it does require the true conservative Republicans to pay hard and close attention to the candidates for the House races, the Senate races, and the governor's race. I'm really encouraged, though, because I see a wave happening that was somewhat similar to the wave we had in 2004, 2006, and 2008. When I went into the state Senate, we were in the minority. There were 26 Democrats and 22 Republicans, but we worked so hard to recruit and raise money and get true conservative Republicans elected that when we got control of the Senate, we did what we talked about doing: lawsuit reform to keep doctors in Oklahoma, workers' compensation reform to help manufacturers. I fixed the state pension systems, lots of tax cuts. Well, now, post-COVID, the MAGA movement, constitutional conservatives coming to events like this, you're seeing people pay a lot more attention. So there's some new members of the Senate, like Kendall Sacchieri, who I'll see later in Stevens County, and Julie McIntosh, the senator from Wagner County, that have come into the Senate because people were mad and frustrated that the previous office holders weren't being true Republicans. You've seen some of that starting to occur in the House when the appropriation budget chairman was defeated by Representative Jim Shaw, who was a complete unknown, but he communicated to the people of his district, here's how you can tell I'm a true conservative, and he won. If you get a few more true conservatives in the Senate and several more true conservatives in the House and a true conservative in the governor's office, then that's why I say this thing about there's a chance to save Oklahoma like President Trump is trying to save America, and we can usher in a golden age of really addressing some of these big problems.
In fact, I met Jim Shaw, overlapped at several meetings with him. He is immensely popular, at least in the meetings that I've been at. They've been OK2A meetings.
Yeah, I talked to him 2 days ago.
Yeah, he seems like a true believer.
Yeah, and if you've seen his plan, Save Oklahoma, sign up on it and say that you support it. If you haven't seen it, just go saveoklahoma.com, and I think you'll be highly encouraged of his 7-point priorities.
And Sacket, I haven't overlapped at a meeting with her, but she's been very effective for a junior senator. Freshman senator, that's right, I'm sorry. Yeah, right. And then it would be fresh person, wouldn't it?
Stay away from that one, Terry.
Yeah, you gotta be sure.
Good, you're up, yeah.
Uh-oh, you're...
Back to education.
Wait, you got 2 people at the same time.
Okay, well, no, go ahead.
Speaking of education, I've seen that the state of Oklahoma has been bottom 5 for the last 10 to 15 years, and as of recently, we are the worst state in education. How much change is going to happen in order for Oklahoma to just not be in the bottom 5, but be in the top 25 in education?
Very important question. So, part of the problem that just came up was 10 or 15 years of Republicans in control, and we're number 50 in education. It's just absurd. Well, part of the problem has been leaders like some of my opponents increase funding, which I'm all for paying teachers more, and we want to have teachers paid tops in the region. But if you just increase funding and you don't do any change, and the results just keep getting worse, it's time to do something. It's time to do something different. Now, I like to say we don't have a money problem, we have a money management problem. So we do have a platform for education, both at the K-12 level and the higher ed level, and you can learn more about that at mikeforok.com. But some of the most important aspects to having a 10-year dedicated approach like Mississippi did was get rid of this nonsense word-based memorization reading curriculum that became a fad all over the country and return phonics to every reading classroom. There's something that was passed a few years ago which had good intentions called the Strong Readers Act, and it required, they now call it the science of reading, but it's basically phonics, and required our education departments of our colleges and universities to have that taught to the new teachers. I was recently informed that 3 of our 23 colleges are doing that. So we have to reform what's going on in K through 12, but we also have to change what's going on in the education departments at all of these colleges and universities for the next, generation of teachers. Now, as we do that, we have to have a well-layered approach of reading specialists in every county and every school district. What I understand from the Mississippi model is they have 2 literacy coaches, Terry, for every school. So they start with this statewide literacy director, and then they have regional directors and county directors and then local coaches, and I'm probably not saying that 100% precise, but if we get committed to a 10-year reform package that is consistently funded, and we stop pushing kids along when they're not ready, we can do what Mississippi did and go from bottom to top.
I attended school in Oklahoma for 6.5 years. I moved in 1959. Even back then, it was, thank God for Mississippi. That was when we had 48 states. We were 47 and they were always 48. And it had been that way my whole academic career here. One other thing, I moved back to Oklahoma from New Mexico. In New Mexico, the state statute is you commit a crime if you're a third grade teacher and do not send an illiterate student on to the 4th grade. The exact mirror image of here, so, which is crazy. Let's see, come on, any other questions? Yeah, there we go, Suzanne.
Well, it's more of a comment and a question. We have
Okay,
so
go
many-
ahead.
I deal with a lot of parents and kids, and most of them think.
Are you a teacher?
I'm a dance teacher. but
Dance
I have
teacher,
a
okay.
teaching-
I'm married a teacher.
Okay, well, I have a degree from OSU years ago,
Okay.
teaching degree. I've taught at NOC, and I haven't taught at public, except.
This is Susan Kim of Kim's Gym, which is a great name.
Kim's Gym and Dance.
There you go. Go ahead.
Most of the parents don't realize how bad it is. They think their kids are great. And we had a representative here probably a year ago, and I asked him why he supported public education. And he said his answer was, he did well.
He did well?
He did well. He turned out well.
Oh.
Oh my
Remember who it
gosh.
was?
Yeah.
Oh, who was it?
Just a minute. We have Coleman, and who's our representative?
Coleman's our senator, Pfeiffer is our rep here, and just east of here.
Luttrell.
I mean, Luttrell is east of here,
Ken,
and
Luttrell.
Pfeiffer is for.
He was even in one of my shows. I really like him.
Who was it?
Ken.
Ken Luttrell, okay.
Yeah.
Well, he's a Republican and.
In name.
Yeah, before, he was also a representative before as a Democrat.
Yeah.
So.
Well, to your point, in terms of how are the kids really doing?
Yes.
Part of the Mississippi model, which again is something we instituted when I was in the Senate, but then the Republicans in name only came around and eliminated it, is you have to have during the school year assessment tests to measure where is the progress or lack thereof in terms of mastering certain levels of reading. But everybody got upset that there were just too many tests and it was just, a burden that they got rid of them. And of course, in Mississippi, the reforms that I voted for that we thought would help us go from the bottom to the top, the 3rd grade reading gate, these assessment tests, they got wiped out. And now we have proof that it would have worked. So our commitment is we're going to reestablish those reform ideas and practices, because if we teach these kids to read proficiently, you're going to have thousands and thousands of Oklahoma students that are going to be better prepared for either career tech or college and have a great job.
Plus, if they know how to read, they've got a whole life's entertainment laid out for them.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. We have time for one more question. He's speaking this afternoon.
I got to be in Duncan.
In Duncan. Everybody know where Duncan is?
Yeah.
Damn near to Dallas. Anyway, so one question. Is there anybody that hadn't asked a question? Okay, Jaden, go ahead.
Yeah, Jadan Terrazas. I'll talk loud, that way I don't stand up. But with the overarching other problems we've been talking about, I think this one probably stems the rest. what are your opinions or action plans for marijuana in the state of Oklahoma?
Well, we've talked about the foreign ownership of land and how we've got to get the bad actors out. I have learned from a recent interview that we had on a podcast with a sheriff from one of our western part of the state counties, that the current marijuana grow farms in Oklahoma are producing 32 times more marijuana than is needed for the 300,000 Oklahomans that actually have a medical marijuana card. The best idea I've heard for clamping down on this out of control, crazy disaster of basically recreational marijuana in the state is to use the regulatory aspect of what's called the Medical Marijuana Authority, and by executive order, if necessary, increase the annual registration costs for certain of these marijuana grow farms to what we see in other states. The current annual registration to grow marijuana is $2,500. Guess how much it is in California?
10,000? More, 25? 50?
250,000?
I think it's $85,000, $90,000
For a grower.
for a grower. Well, here in Oklahoma, it's only $2,500, and you can grow on 10 acres, on 1,000 acres. So if it's cheap and easy, where's all the money and nefarious folks gonna come? Here. Well, we need to hike the cost, and one law enforcement officer I heard said we need to restrict the land acreage to half an acre for growing marijuana. Thereby, we protect the Oklahoma-based businesses that want to grow marijuana for people with a medical license to have marijuana. But if we make it more expensive and we close off the amount of acreage they can grow, the Chinese and all these other Russians and cartels, they'll just leave. And so our idea is to have enforce the Constitution and change the structure by which marijuana is grown.
Illegal grow farms.
We've just been talking about Mississippi. A lot of the ones that have left here, we've gone from, we've lost about 2/3. We had, what was it, like 10 or 11,000 grows, and we're down to like 3,000, I think now, the last I heard.
But we're still producing 32
Yeah.
times
Oh, yeah,
more
yeah.
than needed.
Well, it's all those rider trucks that are,
And it leaves
Yeah.
the state.
And it's going out, it's going all across the country.
okay, sorry, he's gotta go.
Look at one of these, have you looked at one of the marijuana cards? Have you seen one of them?
Not recently.
Look at one of those, and it'll tell you how much you can carry, how much you can have on your person at a time.
Okay.
You can have enough on your person to get this entire town high.
Like a pound.
Nobody needs that kind of money, kind of marijuana. Nobody needs that.
Okay, folks, let's give him a hand. Very informative, and,
You're good, you're good.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, we'll come back.
Okay.
All right. Are you familiar with, I got hit with a phone call the other day, and I believe they said they were from the GOP in Oklahoma, doing a survey on the governor, and who you were gonna vote for if it happened today, and then the only thing they ask is, do you, what's important for him to know is for these people to know, so they answer it right. that I just wanted to give you a heads up that you may wanna get to the GOP and see if in fact there is a phone canvas out
There's
there.
gonna be a whole lot of canvassing going on, I guess.
But it was.
Buy it on deal.
Lord bless you and keep you.
Thank you.
Make his face to shine upon you. Be gracious unto you and maybe keep you dry.
Thank you. The thing that got me, Terry, and I think it's one of these folks do, is they claim it was from the state GOP. And the question